Nice.
Recording in progress.
And it was
Oh.
Yeah. I think the volume's coming out here though. I don't know why it changed.
My mate said that to begin with, he just said, I'm not going to broadcast this, because I just don't want to. But
it's broadcast.
Next stage, then you select a general solution.
Great. Is everyone in? Good morning, everybody, and hello from London. We are here today for the Design for Planet Festival, and we have first speaker on for Design Declares with Alexie and Joe. Can you guys hear me? All good?
Hello. Yes. Hi. Thanks, Priya.
Brilliant. So we have
Hiya.
everyone online. So I'd love to introduce Joe and Alexie. Joe is the founder and creative director of the industrial design innovation consultancy Morrama, and she has been championing the role of sustainability to create a better design industry to the instigation of Design Declares. She's also one of the few female founders within design, tech, and product development industries, and has been featured in the Times, the BBC, CEO Secrets, Wired, and Tech Round, and is one of the top 10 women to watch in tech and STEM. Outside her work at Morrama, she's also an associate lecturer at the Royal College of Arts. Alexie is a designer and communication expert who focuses on business sustainability. She is a founding member of Urge Collective, mentor for Fashion for Good, and a consultant strategist with Pentagram, a sustainable human at the Group of Humans, and was previously creative director at Thomas Matthews and the design director for creative at the Guardian newspaper group. So without much ado, I'd love to start off with Alexie and Joe on Design Declares.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Priya.
Priya.
That's great. We're also joined this morning by Abdi from Drift Time and Aurelie from Snook. So welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining this session. I can see lots of people in the meeting, so that's fantastic. Thank you for joining us this morning. Today, we're talking about Design Declares. So I'll give you a bit about the backstory. Please make sure you add any questions to the chat and we'll answer them later as we go along. So today's session is really to let you know the what, why, and how of Design Declares and why we put it together and what our intentions are and how we'd like to get you involved. So conversations about Design Declares started in 2019 when Extinction Rebellion was doing a lot of activity and putting pressure on the government. The UK government declared a climate emergency, and things started rolling from there. This triggered a series of industry groups to also start declaring. Architects declare, engineers declare, music declares, culture declares, business declares, fashion declares. A whole series of declaration movements triggered. And at that point, I was having many conversations in the design community about where is Design Declares, and we started talking about it. We started networking around it. We connected with the Design Council. We designed a survey. And then we came across a few stumbling blocks. Who's responsible? How does this grow? How do we fund it? And then COVID happened. But throughout that time, we've been learning from the other design movements. And then earlier this year, Joe and I myself were connected by the Design Council. Now, Joe had talked about Design Declares, a design truth event, and we were put together. We quickly brought Abdi and Aurelie and a couple of others along en route and started working on design declares from about April this year. So really, there's really 4 key aims for design declares. So really, the focus of the movement and the campaign is to bring the voice of the design industry together. So we're really focused on service, digital, communication, and industrial designers. And by industrial designers, we also mean...
Wait, Alexie, I think you are on
Oh
mute.
my gosh, I've been on mute this whole time.
No, just now, just the last.
Apologies. Oh, really? Oh, okay. Okay. So engaging, so where was I? So we've designed it for service, digital, communication, and industrial designers. So part of design declares is to support self-driven industry change and change in practice. We've also, the point of design declares to signpost to kind of excellence in industry using case studies to look at kind of tools that we can bring to kind of highlight leadership that's happening. So, for example, this event by the Design Council, as well as others in the industry, and eventually show industry the kind of the weight of a design industry and what our demands are for government. So those are the key kind of aims for design declares. Now, we launched in September of this year, having had various conversations with architects declare and design declares, and we came up with a kind of very solid structure. We'll get to that a bit later. So we have a framework, which is the 8 acts of emergency, and we have a toolkit, and we'll talk to you about the community. So I'm going to hand over to Jo at this point.
Thanks, Lexie. So my journey in sustainability and design is quite, I'm at the very beginning of that, and probably about 18 months into sort of learning more about what sustainability means when it comes to design. And I think this is one of the key sort of statistics that has like stuck with me over that period of time. And this is from the European Commission EU Science Hub, and it says that 80% of product-related environmental impacts are determined during the design phase of a project. And we are, like, I'm an industrial designer, we make physical things, and so there's lots of sort of energy and resources that go into making it, going to the actual use of the product, and going to the disposal of the product. And what this statistic means is that we have a huge responsibility, but also a huge opportunity as designers to actually make a difference in the projects that we're involved in. So Alexie mentioned that there's 8 acts of emergency, and in putting together this sort of declaration, first and foremost, we want people, designers, design teams, to sound the alarm, to declare a climate emergency. And I know that that means different things to different people, but it's essentially acknowledging and raising awareness of the climate and ecological crisis. So you're basically saying, yes, there is a crisis, and we acknowledge that, and we're going to do what we can to make a difference. And so these 8 acts progressively kind of take you on a journey of learning, understanding, and actually acting on your impact as a designer. So the first one is sound the alarm. Second is start the journey. So we're not asking people who sign this declaration to have done all of these acts, like to be at 8, but they're basically committing that they're going to start this journey. And so we've sounded the alarm. Now we're starting the journey, and it's a process of education. What is sustainable design? What is regenerative design? What do those terms even mean? And starting to learn by speaking to experts, by using the resources that we've put together, by speaking to each other about what that actually means. And then, of course, a lot of us as designers work with clients, or work with stakeholders, whether you're working in-house for a larger company and you have to bring all of the kind of different departments on board, or whether you're working in a small consultancy on lots of different projects, lots of different clients. It's about how do you kind of bring those stakeholders on that journey with you. And so that it's not just a case of you sort of like trying to just like shout at a bunch of a room of people who aren't listening to you. It's like actually kind of having meaningful conversations about what that means for their business. Because one of the really good things in a way is that because we're kind of at crisis point, there isn't really an option for businesses to survive without making these sorts of considerations. So our job is kind of done for us in trying to change minds. So we don't need to change people's minds. They know the importance of this, but it's sort of acknowledging how we can start to make a difference together. And then number 4, and this is really hard, is measure what we make. So we often get involved as designers in a small sliver of this kind of seemingly much larger process. And how do we then measure what our impact actually is? So if I'm designing a product, at the very early stage, it's so kind of like hard to pin down what that product is. It might just be a sketch on a piece of paper or a 3D CAD model. And how can I say what the impact that's going to have? Because it's not yet determined where it's going to be made, what the user's going to do with it at the end of life. We don't necessarily know those things, but there are tools that are out there that can allow us to do like comparison studies. There's obviously full LCAs that we can do, perhaps in hindsight, but we can learn from them for our next project, and starting to understand like what those things are that we can implement throughout our process to measure and therefore act on what we're making.
Thanks, Jo. I'm going to pick up here. So redefine good. What do we mean by redefine good? This is about encouraging and recognizing excellence in sustainable and regenerative design and showing that through the media and through awards. Aesthetic isn't good enough anymore. We have to make sure that there is criteria and evaluation of projects kind of across the industry that looks at better practice. And then our next one is educate and accelerate. So Jo, if you could flick forward. So this is really about building networks. So we are in a highly competitive industry as designers. We pitch ourselves against one another. And the challenge of initiatives like this is actually we need to start collaborating and sharing knowledge, sharing tools and sharing resources, which is exactly what we've been trying to do with Design Declares. We set up a toolkit that relates to these 8 acts of emergency, which Abdi will talk about in a bit. But so our next piece, our next one is Design for Justice. And this is really understanding the communities within which we are designing for and by, and how they're affected both by the climate, both by design impact, and both by a transition to a low carbon world. And then our final one, which is amplifying voices for change. And this is very much about designing alongside policymakers, making kind of national global change, campaigners, ecologists, scientists, activists, really using your design skills to kind of have impact and make a difference and strengthen voices. So essentially these 8 acts kind of form a type of international design manifesto for positive impact and practice. And how do we inform that? So we've put the toolkit together. So I'm going to hand over to Abdi to let you know about that.
Sure, thanks, Alexie. And so before I jump into the toolkit, just a bit of context. So as sort of Jo and Alexie maybe mentioned before, we kind of came in pretty early in the stage as this was starting to develop through invitation. And I think, just in the nature of our business being a sort of digital design and impact agency, it kind of made a lot of sense for us to kind of jump in and start to kind of support with this. And so one of the main things, I think one of the differentiators with Design Declares is that we wanted to put together this toolkit and kind of collate all these amazing resources and insights that already exist out in the internet and sort of, from other people, and turn them into something a little bit more actionable to tie them to the acts themselves. And the plan with this, obviously, by going through acts 1 to 8 and by collating the insights and the resources, is to hopefully, with the power of the community, start to build that framework to kind of get a better understanding of how we can put these things into place, action them, and get a better understanding to kind of see where the nuance is and how we can kind of champion these things. And then the eventual thing is obviously, by committee through the community, is to hopefully eventually create new standards within design. And so this thing is very much living and breathing. It's sort of evolving as we go, and hopefully through the community we are informed and kind of add more resources and so forth, and use it as just a way to kind of build moving forward.
Aurélie, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Aurélie Leonette. I'm from Snook, which is a service design agency based in London and Glasgow. And I have been invited to join the initiative by Alexie earlier this year. And yeah, the reason why I joined Design Declares and, decided to put some time in to help bring it to fruition is because it's been a few years. I feel like there's been an appetite and like some attempts and different initiatives to really try and bring together the industry. And so that's really the kind of community aspect of this initiative that I'm excited about, because I really feel like, we can collectively define and learn around our role and approaches as designers around tackling the climate and ecological crisis. And also as a collective, with designers coming from across different backgrounds, across industries and sectors, whether we're in-house and in agencies, we can really have a massive impact, not only by showing the weight of our industries concerned, but also, by kind of learning and sharing from one another. So I'm looking forward, to meeting more people through this initiative and to share and learn, around the different challenges that we face, because it's definitely not an easy thing to grapple, and, to share, what we've tried around the 8 acts, and also to potentially help continue putting together, through this toolkit, to share practical resources and case studies around how different people are approaching different things. And yeah, for me, this kind of collective and peer learning will hopefully help, adapt our practice quicker and more efficiently, so that we can help tackle change at scale and at pace, as we know that that's needed. And also, yeah, importantly, to start also understanding what it means to adapt, to climate change, because especially this year, I think we've seen a lot that the impacts are already there. So yeah, sharing and learning, and also, yeah, by communicating and sharing, it'll help probably make us feel a little bit better about everything that is happening. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to meeting more people and potentially having it a global initiative at some point, but we'll see, one thing at a time.
So now we'd like to invite a couple of our signatories to talk about what motivated them to sign. So I'd like to hand over straight away to Angus Dick from Arrival. Angus, you need to unmute.
Yeah, we've been muted and we've been unmuted. Thank you very much, Alexie. Yeah, thanks for the handover. Well, hi everybody, I'm Angus. I'm firstly delighted to be here to support Design for Planet Festival and the Design Declares initiative. The question raised here, why did we become a signatory, Arrival, as a company? Well, I urged the design and sustainability community at Arrival to get behind the Design Declares initiative as firstly a positive action statement, but also to nudge everybody to think in their day-to-day capacity, are we doing enough? I think to think critically, or a little bit more critically as designers, about what our frustrations are and what are we missing from our day-to-day processes and knowledge fields that could help us be more ambitious with sustainability targets and goals. It's been an interesting journey at Arrival, designing for mobility as a technology company, designing for everybody, from our bus to our delivery van, and often taking for granted that technology, as a technology company making electric vehicles, leading our own material developments and technology components for that matter, that we are doing enough already. However, recent connected global and industry situations and the encounters with Design Declares initiative has made me rethink and reflect on the challenges we have encountered where we might have done more. In as much as we have design principles at Arrival that encourage us to act and reduce, to minimize and be mindful, there have been broader challenges when dealing with materials and the ultimate choices we have to make. To the point made earlier, every choice, 80% is at the design phase about what's going to impact the end product that you make. So I started reflecting on some of these frustrations, and I think thinking on it, when designing something that is made from hundreds of products and sub-assemblies, such as a vehicle, there is often a lot that can be overlooked, and making the right choices can be very difficult, and many forces are acting upon those decisions at that point. So things like cost and mass targets that dictate the process and the supplier, And the regulations can dictate the materials and to make sure that the materials are safe and compliant. So if we wanted to use an innovative material for sustainability reasons, they may not perform well, for example, against fire retardancy standards such as Crib 9 that are TfL mandated, and for that matter, the durability issues that come with mobility. The development and certification process could be cost and time prohibitive, unless perhaps, let's say, the governments were to support with tax initiatives, plus or minus for that matter, and encourage material development for a more circular and sustainably innovative material economy that performs to high safety standards too. When choosing processes and materials, we don't seem to have, unless you define them yourself, have industry standards and tables that make it a lot easier to gauge whether the process you're choosing is a sound one and whether there are bigger implications for those processes. One of the reasons we opted for composite materials, for example, with our vehicles, was to take away the need to spray paint, which has environmental implications and restrictions on where we could operate. It's also a low energy process and it's highly durable for its length of life. Finding this out and making such choices is a very, very lengthy process. And I somehow wondered, could this be speeded up? And what are the tools that can help us to do that? So this is why I find design declares quite interesting. How we can make the best choices with clear comparisons and alternatives, better alternative than the choice you're perhaps going to make. How do we make the trade-offs with a much wider view of the cost and time implications? And how can materials and processes that don't belong to this century be discouraged from use more rapidly? Holistic product marks seem to be lacking, and knowing how we fare against other products we are competing with. How do we truly know the environmental cost of a product? Yes, there are energy ratings in use over time, but there is not much else offering constructive and usable information as comparable standards. Yes, we might tell the world how sustainable our product or how our product is, or a particular company is a B corporation, but how might people or product purchasers, for that matter, understand we are the sustainable gold standard against the other companies and therefore encourage competing standards? So all in all, I look forward to supporting the Design Declares initiative, watching it grow and taking part in the forums ahead and working together to think critically. And yeah, I look forward to the discussions and workshops today. And thank you for the opportunity to speak and raise the issues that we want to seek important action for. So yeah, thank you for the opportunity.
That's great. Thank you, Angus. It feels like we need to start a working group for standards and regulations straight away. And I know Joe will be right on with that. So I'd also now like to turn to Tara Hanrahan from Think Do. Tara, are you there? You can give us your perspective on why you've signed Design Declares. Tara, is she still with us?
Okay.
Yes, there.
Hi there. Sorry, I was having trouble unmuting. Hi there. So I think, firstly, we've got a climate emergency that demands action. And secondly, I'm a huge advocate of responsible design. So in many ways, becoming a founding signatory was a no-brainer. But more specifically, it aligns with my design practice, both as a creative consultant and a role that I have in education. So I've been operating as a sustainable, responsible designer within the sphere of communications, branding and strategy for over 20 years. And as an academic, bringing this into the curriculum and research for about 10 years. So what I particularly like about the 8 acts of emergency is that they build, that we go from declaration through to activation across different sectors and relationships. And as a result, there's an accessible entry point, the commitment, but then a progression to a demonstrable behaviour. So when I talk about responsible design practice, I often do so through the lens of process and purpose. So by process, I mean designing in a way that's resourceful, both in materials and energy, that's systems aware and circular, that's ethical, that's inclusive, of diverse voices, and is co-designed. And in terms of purpose, designing with an intent to have some sort of positive eco-social impact, maybe to champion causes, to facilitate behaviour change, be critical and explore solutions and challenges. And ideally, both principles would be observed. But by having multiple entry points to understanding and applying responsible practices, there's a greater opportunity to bring people along the journey with you. And so in a similar way, I think signatories will find some of the acts of emergency more accessible to them than others. And they can then evolve as their practice shifts in line with their commitments and the experiences that they develop. What also really appealed to me was being part of a committed community. I think that's a big plus. And that's for a mix of reasons. There's this really interesting junction between being held to account and being supported and educated at the same time. And those roles of kind of giving and receiving knowledge as a way to grow within our own practice. And then I think there's this, what you gain from the kind of collective momentum of the community, that energy, and all of which I think are really powerful drivers. And then I think the final thing that I wanted to mention was the toolkit, because I think this has a really pivotal and exciting role. From my experience in developing responsible design frameworks within education, I've become very aware that it's essential to support a call to action with accessible methodologies and tools, things that can be used both creatively and diagnostically, as well as examples that can demonstrate and inspire. So co-creating this as a community will be really key. And I'm super excited to see how this particular aspect grows and how it can really inform Act 6 in the declaration, which is sort of for knowledge sharing to enable and accelerate better practice within the industry. And I think most importantly, that it can genuinely support people to deliver on the declaration they've made. I think too often people sort of, can make a declaration, but feel ill-equipped to meet that expectation. And so for me, that was one of the most exciting aspects of Design Declares, was sort of how we kind of co-create the tools to enable us all to be better designers. So thank you for letting me speak today, and I'm really happy to be on the journey.
That's great, Tara. Thank you so much. And actually, it'll be exciting to work out how we feature some of your work in our next newsletter, and how we look at how we connect the community, as you've mentioned. So thanks for that. So now on to Jo, and what's next?
Thanks, Alexie. We'll whiz through this. So essentially, what's happening now, I'll start with that, is that first of all, we sent our first newsletter out this week, last week, and that was amazingly compiled by Abdi and his team. And we've kind of highlighted some case studies, and we've talked about how we can start to kind of calculate our carbon emissions as businesses, with the intention of then working towards scope 3 and scope 4 emissions. And I'm not going to go into that in too much detail, but it's really interesting what as designers we can do with our scope 4 emissions. But so yeah, that's the newsletter. We're also going to be setting up quarterly talks, conversations, opportunities like this for us to bring multidisciplinary factions of the design industry together to kind of have these conversations. But in terms of what comes next, what we want to use this session today to do is to talk to you guys. And I've just been informed that there's actually a limit of 100 participants in this conversation today, which is devastating because there's apparently loads of people in the waiting room. But we'll do what we can with you guys who have been able to get in there. Very exciting, and talk. We're going to break into breakout sessions, so we're going to ask these 3 questions. So firstly, what challenges are you facing as designers? What within the creative industry, what challenges do you face? And this is a chance for us all just to sort of chat about this. And then what support and guidance and training would you like? In the ideal world, what would be out there that perhaps we can help to sort of create, facilitate, or encourage other bodies to be able to provide to us. And then what demands do you have from the government? Again, like maybe I haven't even thought this far, but perhaps we can start to think, Angus has raised some really key points with regards to perhaps government initiatives for expediting regulation processes on more sustainable materials, so that we can use, there are alternatives that have passed the regulations out there for use in things like highly regulated areas. So let's use this next sort of like 15 minutes just to have a really quick chat. We'll be in groups of 25 because we'll be split into 4. So hopefully within that, there'll be some people brave enough to put their hands up and say, and then we'll come back at the end for a quick, really super quick Q&A. And any questions that aren't answered, the chat is going to be sent to us. So just put them all your things down, and we'll do our best to answer them through Instagram and LinkedIn over the next few days. By the magic of technology, someone is now going to split us into groups.
Yeah, I think Amy's just doing that. We've just got the breakout rooms going there.
Cool. Amy, let us know when we're sort of in groups.
Yeah, everyone's gone into groups. I'm just assigning you guys now. So
thanks, Amy.
Stop sharing this for now.
And then Yorley, hang on, Joe, into room 3. And Yorley, hang on, it's to room 4. Oh, right, everyone's gone now. Should have done.
Slowly but surely, I'm still here. So,
oh, who's that?
Alexie, and there's still another 9 people in the session that haven't been assigned. So, wondering whether.
Everyone should have been assigned. They're just not. They're just...
Hi, Minnie. We're just going into breakout rooms, so arrived at a great time.
Let me just see.
Alexie, I'll ping you guys at 11:55. It's 11:59.
Okay, perfect.
I don't know why you've not gone. 2 seconds. I don't know why these people haven't gone.
I'll join room 1 because it looks like that's the one you've assigned me to. Thanks.
Okay, fine. Right, that's everyone gone now. Why have you guys not gone? There's people in the waiting room. Do you think I should let them in now, Priya? Or
yeah, let's. If we have space, that's a good idea.
oh, but is it going to take it over? Hang on, it might take it over.
I think there's space in room 2. There's 16 people there.
Right, so let's assign them. Right, here we go. So space in room 2, yeah? Oh yeah, 17.
Yeah.
Room 2, room 2.
And room 3, 21. So you can put 4 more there.
Room 3. I was about to put you then.
Yeah, room 4, 19. So that's a good one.
Right, and then. So why are these people at the top here not being assigned? And they're not showing as unassigned, are they?
No, I think Design Council is a host, if I'm not mistaken.
Right. Right, Simon 4. There we go. Okay, so a lot of people have dropped out now.
It's still showing at least 20 per room.
Yeah, we've only got 84 participants in, so that's fine.
Yeah. So in terms of the timing at 11:55, do we just give them a buzz?
So what I'll do is, so what do they want? So what time did they go in? 32. So they wanted 20 minutes for group works. What I'll do is I'll do a message that says breakout rooms going to close in a minute, and then they'll close. Let me just, I said I'd post those questions too, so.
I might join a room just to see what the conversation's like.
Yeah,
and
okay.
Cool.
See you in a bit.
Thanks, Amy. Welcome back, everyone. I guess we have most folks here.
I hope everyone had a really interesting little chat. And I'm sorry that we couldn't do it for the rest of the day. It's my main regret of this session. It feels very short. But hopefully we're going to be doing basically the same as what we've just done, and slightly longer perhaps, and every quarter, so that we can allow people to come in with their recommendations, talk about what initiatives they're also working on, so we can join forces, and maybe see how we can accelerate change together, and not be working too much in silo. But we'll wait for everyone to come back in, and then I think, let me see what's the next slide. Oh yeah, we're just going to talk about how you can get involved, and maybe time for very couple of questions before Priya basically takes the reins and kicks us out, because the next session.
Couple of questions, no worries. You got 4 minutes.
4 minutes. Okay. Well, should we start? I think that most of us are back in now.
Yeah, you can go for it.
Priya, are you able to see the chat? Because I can't see it and share for some reason.
Yeah.
Is there any questions in there that we wanted to answer? Or should we take them from the floor?
Yeah. There is one from Lee. I'll send it across to you, Joe.
Okay. Can you read it out? I can't see the. I have to stop sharing.
No worries. Lee says, I work in brand activations and events, and we create an immense amount of waste. The biggest challenge we have is changing mindsets with clients. Budget always rules, followed by aesthetics. Then if you're lucky, sustainability is an afterthought. What can Lee do?
That's an interesting question, because we've actually had a similar we've actually done something this year at Morrama. So 2 years ago, if you asked us how much we consider sustainability, I would probably have to tell you not that much. And so but we've slowly sort of integrated it into our process, and we've changed now the way that we make decisions on projects. And bringing clients on has been the least of our challenges. So it's not going to be very helpful to you. But basically, what we've done is sort of firstly get really excited about it ourselves, learn about all the opportunities that we can do, and the swaps that we could make, the decisions that we could make that are more positive versus negative, and then kind of make it so that the clients don't have to do anything. So it really is like we're giving them all the information, and we've kind of done as much as we possibly can in advance of kind of taking their projects on, so that it's then like, okay, this isn't going to be too much for you. Yes, there might be a little bit where you have to make a bit of more of an investment, but the benefits of that, if you're putting on an event, the people coming to those events now are likely to be considerate of the climate themselves, and are going to appreciate the fact that there has been decisions made that are going to that the decisions made have been made to that level, and that you can kind of talk about them. So I think my kind of advice in short is learn as much as you can, find as many kind of options for where you can make switches, and then kind of don't give your clients a lot of choice, would be, but do kind of so you're kind of sneaking it in, and then when they start to question it, you can explain with facts and figures why it's a better decision.
I can just add. Can I add to that, Priya? Sorry, very quickly, because it came up in our conversation, our breakout room, and this is very much talking about the power of the consumer. And your clients all have consumers that are not. They're your clients. You're a client of theirs, but their clients are demanding this from them. And if you can research that and understand what their consumers are wanting from them, then you have more leverage to have those conversations and push back against clients and say, well, actually, your customers are demanding this. This is becoming more and more necessary. If you don't do it, you'll lose your customers. So it's that narrative. And if you can build the data and kind of engage stakeholders who are their customers, then that will have a larger impact.
I'm aware that Priya's going to say we've got no minutes left.
Yeah, that's a great question, but we don't have any time left. So I'll try and find these questions to both you and Alexie and Joe, both of you guys, and we can take it forward either on social media or on the crowd chat. Thanks, everyone, and we'll go to the next session. We'll join you in the main stage.
Thanks, Priya.
Thank you, Priya. Thank you, everyone, for joining.
Thank you all.
Thank you all.